and welcome to Books Unbound, the podcast where we unbind books to get to their hearts with your hosts, us. It's Ariel and
Raylene. Hello.
Hello, hello.
Hello.
We have an odd little time warp going on here.
Yes.
So, this is what we're going to start with. Explaining time travel. We all need to start thinking fourth dimensionally, okay?
Okay.
Basically, as you all know, we went on summer vacation. Mm-hmm. We took August off. I got married. You came to the wedding.
I went camping.
You went camping. I went on my honeymoon. Except none of that has happened yet.
Needle scratch. All of that's fake.
Today is July 21st.
Oh God, it's crazy when you say it like that.
But obviously, sometimes in the world of entertainment, things have to be filmed out of order, right? And basically, in order for us to take August off and come back on September 1st, we would have had to record at the end of August, which completely defeats the purpose of recording and of taking August off. So we're recording this at the end of July. Mm-hmm. This is going to come out September 1st, which means we're back, baby. The podcast is back. We all had a great time. Mm-hmm. But it's also weird because we haven't left. We haven't gotten to enjoy all of those fun things we just talked about.
Yeah, but soon.
But when this episode comes out, I'll be on my honeymoon.
Yeah. You're literally still actually not home yet.
Yeah, I'm not back, actually. Let me look at the schedule. Yeah, I don't get back until the weekend. So I'm in the middle of a beautiful adventure. Then we'll get home. Then I'll get home and Connor will get home. We're going to then record on the 8th. And that episode will come out on the 15th.
Yeah.
Because if you remember, we have shifted to a new every other week schedule on the podcast. And so, in 2 weeks from when this comes out, you're going to get the episode you actually really want, which is going to be the massive wedding update, going over all of the adventures we've been having, and doing a big book haul.
Yeah. Because there's one thing I do know. We may be time traveling, but I do already know I have a big book haul. I have a stack of books waiting for me at my mom's house. And then there's going to be more.
Funny.
There's going to be more.
Yes. So a little bit of time warping going on here, but we have a fun episode that we've prepped for this that we're really looking forward to. Basically, we were thinking okay, what can we record that won't expire, that won't be totally random by 6 weeks later or whatever. True. When it actually comes out. And we thought this idea up, which was basically we're going to be sharing our top 2 favorite books in a bunch of different categories. We thought this would be a lot of fun because, well, first of all, because it's evergreen, so it's never going to expire. But secondly, because we haven't recommended books in a long while.
Yeah.
And it's always fun to kind of stick your flag in the sand and proclaim, these are my favorites. Mm-hmm. So we picked out a bunch of categories. We struggled a little bit because there's so many categories we could have done.
Yeah.
And I do feel like we could absolutely do another one of these episodes
I think
at
we're
some
gonna have
point.
Yeah.
With some other categories. Because there's too many categories, as you can imagine. Mm-hmm. I think that's all we have to say, I guess.
Yeah.
That's crazy. It's time to jump in and start recommending some of our favorite books, which is very exhilarating. Category number 1. Classics.
Oh, what a great place to start. Also, I would love to hear people at the end of this episode, after you've listened to it, tell us how many of these that you predicted and you got right. Because I feel like a lot of these are going to be kind of obvious, but maybe not. Maybe not.
They are pretty obvious. My pile, I was picking them out. I was like, well, in some ways, nothing new.
This is not new information.
This is not new information. Okay, classics. Our top 2 classics. Also 2. Let's talk about that number.
So hard. If we had said 5, I would have had a lot of an easier time with this. Trying to pick 2 was insane.
Almost arbitrary. You're almost well, there's 4 favorites, so I guess I'll just pick these 2.
Yeah.
But I did with classics. I pulled out 2. And I was like, yeah, it's definitely these. And then I saw another book. I was like, no, I mean, sorry, it's definitely that one. And then I saw another book. I was like, oh, of course, it's that one. Yeah. So how about you start us off with classics? Okay. What are your top 2?
Take them off my massive stack. So the first one is very obvious. I will start with that. The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. And I picked out my really cool kind of funky cover here that I've got. So yeah, I mean, obviously I famously am obsessed with this book. I own over 40 copies of it.
So many copies.
I'm a collector. I have read it only 3 times, but I mean, I don't think that matters in this list. Some of the things on my favorites list I've only read once, and I still included them, which felt kind of risque, but sometimes that's the way it goes. But yeah, so of course, The Great Gatsby, every time I have reread it since I first read it, I love it even more. So I have definitely confirmed over the past few years that like, nope, I do still love this, and perhaps I love it even more than I thought I did. So that was the first one. And another book that has been happening for me, this has been also happening with this book, is The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton.
Oh, interesting choice. And great cover.
Thank you. I know. I love the Penguin Modern Classics. They're those ones with the white spine and a cool photo on the front. And this is a book that I have loved since I was in middle school. So it was kind of like, is this my other favorite classic? And yeah, like I've read a lot of classics and a lot of them are awesome. But this one makes me feel the most at home. And I feel like such a sense of like, I don't know, it reminds me of being a kid, and it reminds me of being a teenager, and it just, it brings back a lot of things. So it's just like a very personal favorite for me. And it's like, it's about found family and growing up. Like, oh, it's just so good. I love it.
How many times have you read that one?
I think I've read that 3 or maybe 4 times even.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
I really need to reread The Outsiders.
That
so feels like good. Such a grade 6 book. Like we all read that in grade 6 or grade 7. Well, yeah, so it feels very attached to that timeline. You're totally right.
For sure.
Ah, boy, when I say that, I could not have picked more stereo. But, like, we're supposed to be honest. Like, what are your favorite books in these categories? Like, these are my favorites. There's a reason I talk about them so much. So, up first, it's Animal Farm.
Yeah, baby.
I think I've read this 12 times.
Wow.
I wish I kept count. It's definitely more than 10. I don't know at this point. I've actually lost track.
Of course.
And I know I say this every time, but it's just the truth. Every time I start reading this book, I think to myself, God, lower your expectations. Because my expectations are so high. I'm always like, this is the best book. This is the greatest book. I'm like, just cool it. You're going to ruin it for yourself if you have too high of expectations on it. And then I read it, and it's somehow better than I ever imagined. Like, it's just so good. I have so much respect for this book in so many different facets. One of them is the brevity. The idea that you have a concept you want to share with an audience, you show up, you say it, and you end it. You don't drag. You don't add stuff that is unnecessary to this type of story, right? Like, maybe a different story needs to be longer, but this story didn't. And so it is short. It doesn't feel like there are any moments in this book that shouldn't be there. It feels so precise in that way. It's also so fascinating because it's obviously based on the Russian Revolution. It is completely an allegory of an event that actually happened. And so if you know the history of that, it adds so much more interesting complexity to it, which it's so much fun when you can read a book in like a few different angles with a few different lenses. But I also just, every time that I read this, I take away so much about like the importance of being a member of your community and like fighting for each other, taking care of each other, what that actually means, like what it means when forces above you are taking advantage of you. There's so many fantastic themes. And there's so many different characters that each have their own little part to play and each share some really fascinating little observations about humanity. I always learn so much when I read this book, and yeah, I can't recommend that highly enough. So that's my top book, and quite frankly, so top book of all these books. But okay. Number 2, The Blue Castle by Lucy Maud Montgomery.
Cool.
I basically had a choice to make between Anne of Green Gables and The Blue Castle. Yeah. And I was like, I'm not ranking what I think is a better book. I'm ranking like what are my favorite books.
Exactly.
This is my second favorite classic, I think. So this is a story about our main character. Her name is Valency. She's 29 years old and she hates her life. She hates it. She lives with her aunt and her mother. They are completely overbearing and super controlling about her. They're very judgmental towards her. And because of the time period that this is set in, and of course I'm now gapping on when it's set, it's either I think it's the early 1900s, or it's either the late 1800s or the early 1900s. Because of that time, she has very little control over her own life. She's a woman who has to just do what society tells her to do, which is nothing. And because of the way that her life played out, she never got married either. So she doesn't have the independence of running her own home. She goes to the doctor. She says, you are going to die in like less than a year. Yeah. And she's heartbroken. And it's not even obviously because she's going to die. She doesn't even fear death that much. She's just like, I never lived. You're telling me I'm about to die, and I've just realized I've never lived. And so this is like the book of how she tries to turn her life around and takes risks and really empowers herself to live the life she wants to live. It's beautiful. It really feels very similar to an Austen novel because you have a character who's like very powerless in her own life, trying to turn it in the direction of something she actually wants to live. But it's set in Canada, written by a Canadian author, and I just adored this book, so cannot recommend that one highly enough.
Damn.
Wow. All right, next up, graphic novels. Well, this was the trickiest one for me.
Oh yeah, I had picking things up. Yeah, I had a hard time with this one, and I almost like wanted to cheat. Like I almost wanted to throw a manga in there as well because I was like, I don't know if I have like 2 graphic novels that I love enough to call them like my top 2. So I didn't do that, but I did sort of cheat a little bit. So I have one graphic novel and one like it's bound up as a graphic novel, but it's technically comics. So those are my 2 selections because I it would be crazy if I didn't mention this first one. So my number 1 favorite graphic novel series, it is a series, but I'll just show you the first one, is Lock and Key, which is by Joe Hill and Gabriel Rodriguez. So I have read these, I think, 3 times, the whole series. Last time I read it was probably in 2021 at this point. So it's been a little while, but I remember just laying there for like, you know, an evening and I'm just like, I'm just going to read all of them. I'm going to go crazy. And just like, it might've been more than one evening, but I remember that time of just like, all I want to do is read these books. And
full immersion.
Exactly. I just went all in and I definitely would like to do that again sometime. This is a really dark series and the art style is like kind of strange. Like when I first started reading it, I was like, I don't know if I like this. It's like hyper detailed, but it is kind of like just off. Like the characters, like the way that they're drawn, it's kind of not off-putting, but kind of strange, just kind of strange. So I was like iffy on if I was going to like it, but the story matches the art so well. And it's basically about this family their dad is killed. Like right in front of 2 of the kids, and they end up moving to this big house that he kind of grew up in. That's like this huge mansion, and it's a very strange house where there's all of these different keys that the kids start finding around the house that like open different doorways, which sometimes are like magical. Like for example, the first one that the little kid finds, he opens it up and he like becomes a ghost. Like he goes through the doorway and he's just a ghost that can kind of fly around and like look at stuff. So he's like, whoa, this is crazy. But there's all sorts of different things that these keys do. They like give people powers. They let them through into different strange areas. And it's just like such a richly like imagined world. And it's like unlike anything I've ever read. And I just absolutely loved it. And it is horror. It is quite dark and grim. But that's what you'd expect from Joe Hill. But anyway, I love it so much. And I feel like I don't get to talk about that often enough. So I feel like this was a great idea, Ariel. This is a great idea for an episode. And then the next graphic novel that I wanted to put in my top 2, I guess, which feels crazy, On a Sunbeam by Tilly Walden.
Ooh.
Yeah. So this is one I've only read it once, so I haven't reread it in years. And so I'm like, I feel crazy calling this like my number 2 favorite, but I really couldn't think of anything that went above it for me personally. Mostly, like, the art in this is the most beautiful art I think I've ever seen in a graphic novel. For me personally, like, this fits my aesthetic of what I want so much. Like, there's lots of different color palettes, but, like, each kind of, like, little chapter, I guess, kind of follows the similar color palette. But then as soon as you're into, like, another zone or another chapter, it's different, but they're all really beautiful, but they all really like fit the story. And this is about a bunch of people who are in space just trying to like fix up old buildings that they come across on different planets and stuff. And it's very beautiful. I remember that. I don't remember tons about the plot, but I remember feeling so immersed in this, and like it's quite long, and it's huge. I remember just fully falling into it and just absolutely loving every second of it. And I've read a few different books by Tillie Walden, and they're all really good, but for me, like nothing comes close to how beautiful this one was. So my task of trying to get you to read it continues. I really hope one day you will read it.
I think I will. One day. Okay, yeah, this was tricky, but also not that tricky. I guess for me it was a little bit of the opposite problem, where I was like, I love a lot of graphic novels and I read a lot of them, and I was just like, wow. The number one was very simple, but then it was like that number 2 position where I was like, what the hell am I gonna pick? But for the number 1 position, that went to Ballad for Sophie by Felipe Melo and Juan Cavia. So let me remember this correctly. I think Felipe Melo is from Brazil and Juan Cavia is from Argentina, I think. Something like that. And you know what? I never thought about who translated this book. Here it is. Gabriela Soares. Or Suarez, maybe. This is my favorite graphic novel I've ever read. It's a combination of a lot of different factors, of course. We have the plot. I enjoyed the story a lot. It is about a woman who goes to an old man's house to interview him because he's a famous pianist, and she's like a budding reporter, and she's asking him a lot of questions about his career. In his career, he had this scandal, this ongoing feud, this rivalry with another pianist, and that's what they're exploring, and he's like going back in time to tell her what really happened. So the story is really great. I love that kind of a setup of like somebody telling a thing that happened in the past. That's always like really fun and satisfying. But the other huge factor, and this is what's so fascinating about a graphic novel, you can have a great story, but if the artwork isn't beautiful, then or doesn't really function for the story, you've only done half of the thing. Or what I find is the opposite is usually the thing. Like you'll have a beautiful artwork, but the story was nothing.
Yeah.
This artwork, like you were saying about On a Sunbeam, this to me is the most beautiful artwork I've ever seen in a graphic novel. It is so stunning. The color palettes are so rich, and it feels to me like every single page of this book would have taken hours and days.
Yeah.
You know, every frame feels like a frameable artwork, whereas a lot of graphic novels, I don't know, they don't hit me as hard as this artwork did. So I adore this. I just think it's so beautiful. The second one that I decided to go with was Sheets by Brenna Thumler. God, so beautiful. It's so great. This kind of is like, to me, representative of like all of those kind of between middle grade and young adult graphic novels. There's so many great ones. And I'm obviously thinking of like Laura Dean Keeps Breaking Up With Me, and there's so many of the what's the Prince and the Dressmaker. Like there's so many great teen graphic novels. This to me is the creme de la creme of that kind of category.
I agree.
Again, when we're talking about art, I mean, Brenna Thumler is so talented. She is so talented. Her use of color, her use of framing, like it's just beautiful. She just is so good at telling a story. There's really beautiful like double page ones where you have like the whole spread, but then all the little frames are beautiful. And her colors are unbelievable. Also her characters, like you have Marjorie, who's the main character. She works at a laundrette that her mother has just passed away. It's largely a book about grief and how her family, her little brother and her dad are moving through this grief. And then there's another kind of a second story with this ghost, Wendell, who is so cute and so wholesome and so much fun to read about and figure out like what his little story is and how those two become best friends. It's such a stunning story. It deals with such a great theme in such a great way. I love it. I love Sheets.
Yeah, me too. That's another book that like I want to get a second copy so I can cut out pieces of it and put them on my wall because
Yes.
I've read it a couple of times now, and every time I read it, there's a few pages that just like, oh my God, like they just really hit me with their beauty.
They're so delicious.
Yeah, exactly.
I completely agree. All right. Our next category is sci-fi / fantasy.
As you can imagine, this was really freaking hard for me.
I think that's so funny because this was the one where I was the most out of my depth. I was like, I like these two books a lot. I guess they're going to have to be the ones. Yeah.
Yeah. And meanwhile, I'm like, okay, I could have given you a list of like 5 for fantasy and 5 for sci-fi. So trying to narrow it down was hard. I decided to do one of each just to kind of
smart.
Because I was like, I couldn't decide on a secondary fantasy book, and sci-fi was just too hard. So for the fantasy part of this, I, of course, chose The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. I love this book. For many years, this has been my all-time favorite book. Like, every time I read it, it just really hits me. It has all of the things that I love. Like, you've got the main character is this he's very young at the beginning. He's like, I don't know, 11 or something probably. And his whole family is like a troupe of traveling performers. And at the very beginning of the book, all of them are killed except for him. He's the only survivor. Okay. And so he is all on his own, has no money, has no community, and he's like just trying to stay alive at the beginning. And so he's kind of like a street urchin who's just trying to like get money wherever he can so that he can survive. But then he also has this love for music because he's always grown up being surrounded by music. And so his like number one goal is to get a lute so that he can start playing music because he loves it, but also so he can make money. And so that's kind of like how the story gets going. He also really wants to get into the university, as it's called, which is basically this like prime magic school. And so that's where he wants to go. And he's like very smart. He's one of those characters who's just like really good at things, and like he works really hard to be good at things. And I love that in a main character. Like that's one of my favorite kind of character tropes, I guess, is someone who's just like really awesome at stuff, but he does work really hard for it. He's not just like naturally gifted necessarily, but it's so good. And the magic system in this is very smart. Like it feels like something that could really exist, which is another reason I really like it. Cool. It's like a scientific kind of magic system. Like everything has a logic behind it. And I just thought that was so cool when I first read this. And the sequel is also very good. I was going to just do this book and that one as my 2, but I was like, nah, that's silly. That's silly, man.
That's crazy talk.
Because I love that book, but I don't love it quite as much as the first one. So it didn't feel like I wouldn't actually put it as my number 2. And then the sci-fi book, this was very difficult because there are a few sci-fi books that I love a lot. And I decided to go with 11/22/63 by Stephen King.
Interesting.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Totally.
So this one was kind of tricky because like it is sci-fi. It's about time travel, but it's also kind of historical fiction because of that. But I would say primarily it is sci-fi because obviously none of the story would exist without the time travel aspect. So this is about a guy who, at the beginning of the book, there's this guy that he's friends with who like owns a diner that he goes to all the time, and this guy is like he all of a sudden looks really sick and like really haggard, and the main character is like, whoa, what's going on, what happened to you? And he basically explains this whole time travel thing. So this man has been doing this, he's been going back in time trying to get to the date that JFK was assassinated so that he could figure out who did it, like confirm for sure who did it and make sure it doesn't happen. Because his whole idea is if that didn't happen, all of these other horrible things that have happened in history wouldn't have happened. So if I can prevent that one awful thing, the whole world will be better off, basically. And so he goes back, but he's not able to do it. And he lives, in the past for a long time, and he ends up coming back and is like dying. And so he's like, I need someone else to do this for me. And so he gets the main character to do that, and he's like, okay, and he goes back in time. Has some like missteps, so he's able to come back to the modern day, which is a nice thing about it. But if he does that when he goes back in the past, it always goes back to the exact same day, so his time will reset every time he kind of like leaves and comes back. So it's a very like cool time travel setup also. Like it's kind of unique in that way, and it's just beautiful. And there's like a beautiful love story that also exists within this book, which I just love. Oh man, it's truly an epic Stephen King book. Like it's one of those books where it's like, I don't think a single page was wasted. I do think that it deserves to be 1,000 pages long. I think that
that's
all
wild.
of it, and isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
I do feel like this is one of those few books that actually like deserves to be as long as it is. So
that's so interesting because it sounds so good. And I don't think I will ever read it. It's way too big. I'm like, that's insane to me.
That's
1,000 pages. That's nuts.
It's funny though, because everyone I know who has read it, like people, totally different people, like one of my friend's dad, my other friend, like people who are just like read totally different books. Everyone I know who has read it has loved it, which I find very fascinating.
It sounds awesome.
Yeah.
It sounds so cool. All right. Well, I went with a kind of a different direction, but like sort of one of them is the exact same. In fact, my first one is The Time Machine by Mr. H.G. Wells. This is so great. If you haven't read The Time Machine, you really got to read it. It's a baby book. Like, it's so little. Let me look here. What are we talking about here? We're talking about 108 pages.
Wow.
It's a novella, basically.
Yeah.
It's so short. This is, oh God. I think part of what's so cool about it to me as well is just the idea that, like, sci-fi that was written 100 years ago, before they knew about computers, before, you know what I mean? Like, that adds this element of, like, how did you, that's so creative.
That's true.
So fascinating. When was The Time Machine first published? Great question. Let's see here. 1895.
Ooh, my mental guess was 1881. That was pretty close.
Wow. 1895. That's just absurd. That's
pretty great.
That's amazing. So this is a story, and I love the frame. The frame narrative is basically like this guy has a bunch of people over to his house for a dinner, and they all show up, and then they're like kind of like, where is he? And he finally shows up, and he's haggard, he's dirty, he's all like, what? Everyone's like, what the hell happened to you? And he's like, I'm here to tell you about my adventures in my time machine. Whoa. And they're like, it's not possible.
What are you talking about?
It can't be done, you know? And then they like, you know, flub the science in a way though that kind of like you were saying last episode with Jurassic Park, where it like feels like it could be real even though it's not real. Like it feels like, wow, this could have happened. Like it just feels so possible. And then he tells about the story, and then it kind of cuts to the main story where he goes back in time, and he goes like really far. Sorry, he goes into the future. He goes really far into the future, to a time when like Earth isn't run by humans anymore.
Whoa.
And then he goes like even farther and even farther. And it's so interesting. It's such a fun ride. And because it's only 108 pages, it feels really quick and easy to get through. And even though the writing is maybe not what we're used to now, it's so short that it's pretty easy to navigate. Anyway, I always enjoy this book so much. It's just I've read it a couple of times, and every time that I read it, I'm like, this is so much fun. This is just a romp. All right. My next one, this is kind of, it feels like I'm cheating, but I'm not. It's 1984 by George Orwell. Like, I think this counts.
Yeah.
It's a dystopia, and I think dystopia counts as a subsection of sci-fi.
Absolutely.
This, I'm sure you all know, because it's such a classic, but this is the story of Winston Smith, who hates the government. He realizes, he's like, something's off. I don't feel too good. He's like, you know, I'm feeling like something has gone awry. Like there was a better version of existence, and that this isn't it. And he does this like amazing revolutionary act of writing a diary. This is a world where every room is under surveillance. Every room has a telescreen, which is like a little computer that's constantly watching you and that you have to report to all of the time. This is a world where basically everyone works for the government. It's like a completely totalitarian, authoritarian regime where everything is very mandated. Relationships are mandated. They kind of tell you who you're going to marry. They and there's such epic visuals here. There's so many terms like Big Brother or whatever, like a lot of terms that we double think that we pull from this book that have like actually entered our lexicon because of this amazing book. There's definitely a part in it that shouldn't exist. There's basically this section that's a book inside a book, like the main character is reading a book, and George Orwell couldn't help it, and he inserted some of those chapters into this book, and you're like, that's so boring. Like it absolutely should not be.
That's one of my
there.
least favorite things to happen in a book. I'm like,
but what's amazing is you can totally skip that.
Yeah, okay.
Like it doesn't matter. It doesn't impact the plot, so you can skip it if you're finding it quite dry. But yeah, it's this revolutionary act when he's like, I'm going to write down what's happening to me. And I'm going to write down how unsatisfied I am with life. Like, I feel like there can be a better existence. And he tries to find the resistance. And he tries to be a part of the revolution movement. And I mean, it goes horribly awry. It's a dark, dark book, you guys. It's very scary dark. It's a warning. The point of this book is for it to be a warning. And it is a beautiful and interesting and so well done warning. It's very scary. It's a very, very dark book. It's very depressing. But I think sci-fi works best when the author is trying to make a point about a fear or an idea that they have about the future. They're like, the future could look like this, and I'm worried about that. So I'm going to write about it now so that we can think about, like, how do we feel about that, right? When there's, like, a point to it. I feel like that's when sci-fi shines the best.
Absolutely.
And nothing does it better than this. IMO. Memoir/biography. I have some recency bias on this one.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I kind of do too, a little, but not necessarily. I did decide to go for, like, what would I call my top 2? Like, ultimate favorites, not just, like, favorites that I've read recently. So I had a pretty broad scope to work with, because I've read quite a few memoirs in the past couple of years. I mean, the first one is very obvious. This is probably actually my favorite book. If I were to say my favorite book of all time right now, it would be Know My Name by Chanel Miller. 100%. This... Like, I remember when I read it, I was like, this is one of those moments where I really wish I could give this a 6 out of 5 stars. Like, I actually, like, there was not a single fault in this book. Like, it's the most beautifully written book I've ever read, hands down. And I don't even love beautiful writing. Like, she did it, she wrote it in such a fantastic way that I even noticed the writing and, like, tabbed a whole bunch of things. I don't usually tab, I don't usually underline or highlight, but I highlighted in this book because it was that powerful. And it's, of course, a very difficult book to read as well. So I recommend it with a grain of salt. It is about sexual assault, so don't read it if that's not going to be something you want to read. But it is just epic. It's just an epic memoir. And there's so many good quotes in there. And just the way she talks about things, and she's, like, so smart. You know when you read a book and you can just tell that the person is, like, so smart and also funny? Like, she's, like, that perfect combination. Like, her writing is haunting and devastating, but it's also smart and hilarious at the same time. Like, she has this magical talent. So the other book that I have selected is this was picking number 2 was hard. Know My Name was easy. That was an easy choice. And now I'm like, okay, which book feels like number 2 to me? And so I went deep into my soul and was thinking to myself, what is a memoir that I think about all the time? Because I definitely have books like that. There are books that just, like, pop into my head randomly. And I'm just like, oh yeah, that's good. And for me, that is Wild by Cheryl Strayed. Yeah. This is one of those books that, like I said, it pops into my head all the time, and I think about it all the time. Like, oh, maybe I should reread that. And, like, I just think about Cheryl, and I just think about her journey. You know, I really obviously you can tell by these 2 books. Like, I really like memoirs about women, like, going through something difficult and, like, coming out on the other side of it and being, you know, maybe more emotionally strong and, like, stronger on the other side. I don't know. I love that in a memoir, and this book has that. And like, I just admire Cheryl so much from, like, what she goes through in this book, but also she's an amazing writer. And, like, we just love everything she does now. You know, every time we see something about Cheryl Strayed, we're like, oh, it's Cheryl. We love Cheryl.
Go Cheryl, go.
Yeah, I just want her to succeed because she's so awesome. So yeah, this to me, like, ended up being a fairly easy second pick. There's lots of other books I could pick if I was making a top 10, but Wild is definitely one of those ones that has stuck with me. Like, we read it, gosh, has to have been like 3 or 4 years ago at this point, right?
Yeah.
It's been a while.
And
but I still like, it lives rent free in my head, and I really should reread it.
I would love to reread it. I think, that also feels like such a summer book, of course, because she's spending so much time outdoors hiking.
I actually really considered using that as my long walk book, my audio book. I was like, oh, that'd be a good one to listen to. Walking outside, I think.
Walking with Cheryl.
Yeah.
God. Oh, that'd be sweet. All right. Like I mentioned, I have some recency bias here, but, like, I mean, I also think recency bias should be respected to a certain degree when it comes to reading, because a lot of the time you can't remember what you read, like really remember 8 years ago. You're like, I read this great book. I remember really liking it, but I don't really remember if it holds up to everything I've read recently because it was so long ago. Anyways, the first one that I'm going to pick out, I kind of did a memoir and a biography.
Oh, yeah.
The biography is Jane Austen at Home by Lucy Worsley. I feel like if you cry at the end of the book, that kind of almost like makes sure that it's the top of your list kind of a thing.
Yeah.
This was a beautiful biography of Jane Austen's life. Is it the only one out there? No. Is it like specifically a little bit pop fiction-y? Yes. Does it have a specific angle, which is Jane Austen at home? Like, it's like exploring her life through the different homes that she lives in. Yes. And that is part of why I really loved it, because I'm very interested in houses and homes and like seeing the homes that Jane Austen lived in and learning more about them. That was also, that added to it for me. I also very specifically listened to this one on audio, which is actually a theme for the next one as well. And that really added to the experience for me as well. So I loved this book. I loved getting to spend so much time. Like, it's quite a long book and like quite a long audio, but it's like 13 hours or something. And I never choose audiobooks that are that long. So getting to spend that much time in this world of Jane Austen's England and learning about the minutiae of her life, it was beautiful. And it was so fascinating, again, to learn about a woman struggling to be independent, right? Like with Blue Castle, it's a similar theme where it's like the world is out to get you. It doesn't want you to be independent. It doesn't want you to thrive in that way. And she's like, I'm going to publish it anyways, kind of thing. It's so, oh, God. Great. Okay. My next one is Half-Breed by Maria Campbell.
Hell yeah.
Incredible book. Incredible memoir. I cannot recommend it highly enough. This is going to be one of the top books of this year for me. Again, like I said, I listened to the audiobook, and Maria Campbell's still very much alive. So she recorded her own audiobook. And it's beautiful. She really is a great storyteller. Her voice is so compelling. Like, you're just like really in it, and you're listening, and you're enjoying her story. And I say enjoying in the like, it's your captivated sense, but it's a very brutal life that she lived through. And she went through some like truly horrendous, all sorts of horrendous things throughout her life. And so it's a difficult book. It's a challenging book, maybe sort of like Know My Name.
Yeah.
But I think it's so much more victorious in that way, because you know that they get through it, and you know that they like live to tell the tale, but also live to like help others through similar things, and are very inspiring, really is the word sometimes. Inspiring. So Maria Campbell is a Métis writer who lives here in Canada, and the book was published in 1973, and it chronicles like a lot of it is her childhood growing up in rural Saskatchewan, and then her like ends when she's like, she wrote it when she was like 30 something. So it's like that first 30 years of her life. Wow. Super recommend. Incredible. Okay. This next category is hilarious. YA.
Oh, man. Yeah, this one, obviously that's like such a broad category, which like makes it difficult. But at the same time, it was fairly easy, because I do have a couple that kind of stand head and shoulders above the rest. They're both contemporary YA for this selection. Maybe one day we'll do another YA and I'll be able to include some dystopians, because I've got some faves there as well. But when I think of YA, like these to me are the ultimate YA books. So, which one do I pick as my number one though? Okay, I think I'm swapping them. I was going to say another one first, but
minute swap.
Last minute swapperoo. I think this one's actually my favorite. So my number one is The Perks of Being a Wallflower by Stephen Chbosky. This is one I've read, I think, 4-ish times. So like I have read it quite a few times now. And every time I read it, it's sort of like with The Outsiders. I'm just like, this just feels like home. This is, to me, a perfect book. Like, it's so like beautiful and sad, and it's all of the things all at once. And I also have so many like beautiful memories attached to this book now. Like, you and I read it together, literally sitting next to each other on a picnic table. And I mean, I do have my copy here that you spilled water on, which is just beautiful.
Let it be known, I also then bought her a replacement
Yeah, I do have
version.
another copy. But this is the one. I have both. That's the funny thing. Like, I have both of them now. I could have just replaced this one, but I like having both of them. So they live together.
Did I buy you the same cover?
Yes, they are identical.
Okay, cool.
So, but yeah, it was an accident and it's all good. But yeah, this book just has so many memories wrapped up in it for me. And like, I love books about, like, you know, young people growing up and friendship and found family. Like, that's something that I really connect with for some reason. And so this has all of that, and it's just beautiful. It's just beautiful and wonderful.
Damn.
The next book I'm going to pick, I think you will not be surprised by this either. I Am the Messenger by Marcus Zusak.
Oh, yeah.
So I reread this earlier this year, so I did talk about it quite a lot at that time. But this, yeah, I've read this one probably 5 times. Like, I think I've read it even more than The Perks of Being a Wallflower, but I think that one is just maybe a slightly better book. But this one, I have been reading it since I was probably 11 or 12. I remember I first read The Book Thief by him when I was 11, for sure. And so I got this one shortly after because I loved that book so much at the time. But this is just fantastic. This book is about being a good person, and I just love it. The main character is this 19-year-old cab driver who, at the beginning of the book, like, he has no direction in life. He doesn't really do a whole lot. He has his little group of friends, and that's kind of his whole life. But at the beginning of the book, there's a bank robbery, and him and his friends are there, and he prevents the bank robber from succeeding, basically. And so he becomes like a local hero, and then weird stuff starts happening. He starts getting these playing cards that have like different addresses on them, addresses and times. And he's like, what's that all about? So he goes to the first one and sees something horrific. And then he goes to another one and sees something kind of beautiful. And he's like, what is the point of all this? And the point is that, like, he's supposed to try and help these people in whatever way that means. And there's the whole mystery of like, who's doing this and like, why is this happening? So it has like a fun mystery throughout the whole thing, but ultimately it is just about him like learning to be like, to step up basically and like be all that he can be and like help people out. And it's just so beautiful. So I really love this book. Yeah, I'm quite passionate about it. Maybe that one is my number one.
That's so cool.
Maybe I have to swap them back again.
Damn. You know what's funny? I have 3 here because I couldn't pick, but I was like, I won't say 3 because I feel it's unfair. But I was like, I'll make a game time decision. Okay. And I'm struggling just as much as I was an hour ago, so I'm not sure. I will start with this one. This one feels like, yeah, it has to be here. And it is Everybody Sees the Ants by A.S. King. I was curious if you would pick this one or not.
That would be like my number 3 probably. Like, that one was close, but I had these 2 really strong contenders, so it didn't quite break the 2.
This book, and kind of all of the other A.S. Kings that I read and loved, because after reading this one, I then like read so many of her other ones. This book, I think, was important to me at the time because it pushed YA for me. Like, it took YA to its extreme limits of like, this can be literary. It can be like a little bit more than just a plot. And I'm not saying that the books that are just plots are bad. They're great. They're fun. I read a lot of them as a teenager. They're what compelled me to read a lot. Like Twilight. That's a perfect example. That's plots, no message. There's no message in Twilight.
Empty, yeah.
And that's just a really fun and compelling story. I have a huge place in my heart for those kinds of stories. But this one pushed me as a young reader to really think like, oh my God, what is magical realism? What is this like literary device that has very little to do with just like, you could have told the story maybe without it, but adding these new ideas in, these like interesting writing, this beautiful writing, it does something different to the book. And so it was like a really important story in that way. And I remember proselytizing about this book when I was a young person because I was so excited about that. And now when I look back on it, I'm like, I think I was just excited to be challenged as a reader and to see where this genre that I loved, young adult fiction, could be pushed into. This is a story of Lucky, who is being bullied, and he's having a really hard time as a teenager. And the kind of 2 things are happening. The first is that he keeps seeing these little ants everywhere, and they have like little picket signs up, and they'll like say messages to him. And it's like, is he actually seeing these ants? Is he not? But the other huge thing is that when he goes to sleep at night, he's dreaming these like incredibly detailed dreams about is it the Vietnam War?
Yeah.
Yes, the Vietnam War. And he's there with his granddad, who was lost, is like missing in action in the Vietnam War, and he's suddenly with his granddad and running around in Vietnam, and then he'll wake up and he'll be like covered in dirt. Or he'll be covered in sticks or whatever. And you're just like, was he actually there or not? So it's a really beautiful story. I really would love to reread this. I bet you we could read it so fast,
I bet we could, yeah. I would love to reread that too.
It was such a great book. Christ, I don't know which one to pick out of these two. Okay. Nope. Wow. You know what? I bet you if it was yesterday or tomorrow, I'd pick the other one. But today I'm gonna go with this. Am I? I don't know. Okay, I'm going to go with Memoirs of a Teenage Amnesiac by Gabrielle Zevin. One of the reasons that I love this book so much, actually similar with Everybody Sees the Ants. Like, I didn't read Everybody Sees the Ants because I'd heard somebody else talk about it. I just found this in a bookshop. I was living in Honduras at the time, and there was a bookshop that I knew of that almost all of the books were in Spanish, and they have a very small English language section. And I found this. It's hilarious that I found this in Honduras. I don't even.
Why?
But this was similar. I think I found this book when I was 13 or 14, 15, and I found it very randomly at Chapters one day, and I read what it was about, and I was like, that sounds really cool. And then I came home, and I probably read this like 4 times in a row, which is what I used to do as a teenager. Like, I would read a book and then read it again and again, and then maybe read another favorite and then read this again. So I've read this book so many times as a teenager, and I loved this book. Like, this book to me was, I don't know why, but it really spoke to me. Again, like similar to what you're saying, you're like, I don't know why those themes resonated with me, but they did. It's about a teenage girl who, she's leaving school. She's in the parking lot. She's leaving school with her friend. She realizes she forgot something back in school. So she runs back in. She grabs this camera. And as she's running back down the concrete stairs in front of her school, she trips and she falls. The next thing that happens is she wakes up and she has completely forgotten the last, I think, 6 years of her life.
Oh, wow.
So she's struggling with amnesia. She doesn't remember that her parents are divorced. She doesn't remember that she has a boyfriend. She doesn't remember. And obviously, that's such a fun plot where you're like, oh my God, this teenager doesn't remember anything about her life. But she also, what's kind of interesting, maybe this is kind of similar to I Am the Messenger in a way, where it's a person who's like living on a certain mode and they've had to like re-look at their life in a new way.
Yeah.
Because basically, like, this scene that's always really stuck with me is she goes through her room and it's almost like a new room to her. She's like, I don't know any of these belong. I don't remember buying any of these things. I don't remember any of these clothings or like setting any of this up. She finds a diary and she like starts flipping through it and she sees that she's the kind of person, or she was the kind of person that counts calories. And she's like, I had no idea that I cared about that. And she's like finding all of these things and she's like, why would I care about that? Like, this version of her doesn't care about those things. So she's almost seeing herself through like very kind of an objective lens.
Yeah, that's cool.
Which is very fascinating as a teenager to read because you're in this huge time of like insane, you're so like self-conscious all of the time. You're so aware of yourself in like this really awkward and disturbing way, right? Yeah. And so maybe as a teenager I was reading this and I'm like, how interesting is it to like really look at yourself and wonder like, do I agree with the things that I'm doing? Do I like the person that I am? What changes would I have to do that? Wow, such a good book. I'm gonna have to slide this other secret book over here.
I demand to know afterwards what it is. I'll tell you my number 3 later too.
Okay. All right. Well, our next category is Asian translated books because we read a lot of these. And so we thought it would be fitting for us to do this category as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
What if we picked the same ones? We might.
We definitely didn't.
Oh!
I can tell you that right now. You have not read these books. Yeah.
Wow.
So, I mean, this is going to seem crazy.
Raeline's kind of a hipster in that way.
Yeah.
She likes to go off onto her own path.
I'm on my own path. So, yeah, this was another one of those things where I was like, okay, which books do I truly like come back to a lot in my memory and like had such like an interesting time with when I read them. And for me, the first one, I think this will have to be my number one, is 1Q84 by Haruki Murakami. Okay, see, totally. I've read a handful of Murakami's and he's pretty damn awesome. So this one, from the ones I've read, other than his memoir, like I would also put that really high up on my list, but I wanted to go fiction with this one. And this is the book of his that to me is like, it's his masterpiece, I think. Like, this is the most Murakami book you can get. And it's another one that is very long, but I think deserves to be as long as it is. And this one is kind of a weird book. It follows two main characters who like don't know each other at all. They're living totally separate lives. But one of them, the female character, is an assassin. Which is really cool. And so you're following her and her whole journey with that. But then you've also got this other guy. And they're basically like circling each other almost. And it's like they're coming together, but they don't know why. They don't know like what is going on with the other person. So it's kind of like this big mystery. But there's also, it's like a parallel 1984. Like they're living in 1984, but there's almost like kind of a parallel world is existing next to them, and they call it 1Q84. And so they're kind of trying to figure out what's going on with that. And there's like two moons in the sky. Like there's like all these like strange like magical realism type things happening. And so it's kind of similar to what you're saying with Everybody Sees the Ants, where like it's like what exactly is happening, and it's like you're not really sure, but it's so cool. And
so does it have anything to do with George Orwell's 1984?
I think it's mentioned in the book, but it's not like a retelling of 1984 or anything like that.
Okay.
But I think they do talk about the book every now and then.
That's interesting.
I do have a vague recollection of that. But this book is sweet. I do actually really want to reread that. Even though it's super long, I could totally see myself rereading it soon. And then the next book I chose is Out by Natsuo Kirino. So, I know you're probably thinking, not Convenience Store Woman? Who is this crazy person? But when I think back to like the books that I truly like really, really loved when I read them, and when I think like with Convenience Store Woman, I need to reread it. It might get bumped up after I reread it, but when I first read it, I liked it a lot, but I wouldn't have called it a favorite. I might now. But anyways, I have to speak my truth. So as of right now, 1Q84 and Out would be my favorites. This book is so weird. It randomly pops into my head all the time, which is kind of spooky because of what it's about. But like, I'm always just thinking about this factory that these women work in. I don't know why. I want to read another book about people who work in a factory because of this book. So this follows 3 women who, or maybe it's 4. No, I think it's just 3. Wow. It's all a blur in my head at this moment. But basically there's this group of women and one of them kills her husband. And then she's like, "Oh, I need some help." And she like enlists the other women to help her. I'm pretty sure it's 3 women now that I'm talking about.
Okay.
And so it's just about them like doing that, and it's like really grim and really gruesome. But the whole book itself is like so engrossing, and you're constantly on the edge of your seat, like, how are they going to get away with this? How is this all going to work out? And I just loved it. The ending is the only thing that like for me is just like a little bit imperfect, but other than that, it's a perfect book. So
that's interesting. I don't know if I can find a book to be a favorite if I don't love the ending, because to me that's like so stressful, because I don't know, it's like so disappointing, right? You're like, oh, we didn't quite nail the landing.
It's so close, but I still overall like it doesn't tarnish the entire book for me. But
okay. Well, I did pick Convenience Store Woman, kind of because it's emblematic to me of the genre and of like how when I started reading Asian translated books, specifically, obviously we're talking about Japanese and Korean books, but there are other ones that we've read. This one was like a beacon where I was like, whoa. What they're writing in their literary scene over there is very different than what we're writing in our literary scene over here. And it's so fascinating to me to see what is successful in Japan and which of those books are actually resonating with people over here. Because like one of the huge cultural imports from their publishing scene is like cozy books, right? Like Before the Coffee Gets Cold and Days at the Motosuke bookshop, and like other like books like that are like very cozy, very atmospheric and just like cute. But then there's also these kinds of books that are like woman in an office or in a workplace and she's dissatisfied. It's such a fascinating concept that we see over and over and over again from those books. And I just really enjoy that theme, and it's very interesting to explore it from such a different angle. And then there's always like a magical realism thing going on, or it feels like there might be something like that's extra special about the world that they're inhabiting. And yeah, I agree with you. This is like one of those books that when I read it, I don't know if I gave it a 5 out of 5. I don't remember. But it's one of the books that I think about the most.
Yeah.
It's one of the books that I bring up in conversation a lot. It's one of the books that like I make connections to with other things that I'm reading. So I really do need to reread this. And also like, what is it? It's 163 pages long. It's so short. Yeah, I got to reread it. So good. The other one that I decided on, this was tricky. Again, there was a couple other ones that I was like, maybe that one. But I decided to go with The Hole by Hiroko Oyamada. This is one, again, that I think about a lot. And it's one of those books that, like, has such a specific theme. Like ambiance that I'm imagining. Like, I am standing in a Japanese suburb on the outskirts of Tokyo. There is no one else around. It's completely deserted. It's hot. It's like unbelievably hot and humid, and the cicadas are screaming, and like that's like sense of ambiance is so strong in this. It's so beautiful. Like it's so really fantastic at transporting me to a completely different place, a place that has nothing to do with my real life. And I just really loved her writing and like have enjoyed following the other things that she's writing. So yeah, I had to go with that one. That's awesome. Tricky.
That is tricky. And also, I like that you mentioned that a lot of Japanese books are cozy now, and that's like the opposite of the vibe I picked out. Like both of the books I picked are like very dark. So that's another like flip side to it.
Yeah, there's definitely like a lot of different things that are getting imported. There's the cozy books, there's the office books, there's the horror for sure. There's like a lot of horror and like you got the mystery stuff as well. But yeah, it's all very, very interesting. Yeah. Okay, we decided to throw in one more category, and that was going to be something unique that we each picked out. So, Raylene, what did you do?
This was really hard for me to pick the category. That was the hardest thing. So I was like, I could do short story collections. Yeah. I could do manga. I could do horror. Like, there's a lot of different things that I could do that are like kind of specific to me. But I decided to go mystery thriller.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So I went mystery thriller. My number one book is another one that I reread actually recently. So it's probably not going to surprise you, but Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn. Yeah. This, I have read this 3 times now, both on audio and physical copy. All versions are amazing. I just love this book so much. It's so clever. And I really feel like it like launched a huge wave in publishing of like these domestic thrillers where you've got like a husband and wife and something weird is going on within their relationship. One of them is doing something bad. And I just think that this one is still like hands down the best one. I've never read another thriller book that has come close for me as being like as clever as this one. This book, like, there's not a lot I can say about it without spoiling it, but essentially you've got a husband and wife who on their 5th anniversary, the wife goes missing and the house is kind of trashed. And so it looks very suspicious. Everybody suspects the husband, but we also are reading from his perspective and he is insistent that he had nothing to do with it. He doesn't know what's going on, but you don't know if you can trust him or not. But then you've also got another perspective, which is from Amy's perspective, like her diary entries, basically, that she's been writing for the past however many years while they've known each other. So it's about them getting together and getting to know each other. And so you're reading both of these different perspectives and you don't know who to believe. And so it's very fun to read. And when all is eventually revealed, it's just unhinged in the best way possible. And the book is just very well written as well. Like, it's, to me, way more well written than any other thriller I've ever read. So highly, highly recommend that.
Is it a spoiler for you to tell me what's on the cover?
I think it's hair.
That's what I thought as well, but okay, so it's not really like a plot point?
No, it's not. It's not.
Okay.
Although, yeah, if it's hair, like, her hair looks white, which is a little crazy. Her hair's blonde, but anyway, it's just hair. And then the next book, I've got recency bias on this one, baby. You better believe it.
God of the Woods?
The God of the Woods by Liz Moore. So I really wanted to bring this one up again because I just think that this is one of the best books I've read in the past few years. Like, not even just last year. This book, like, I really do think about this one a lot. And once, similarly to Gone Girl, like, I think that it's very clever in the way it's written. You've got tons of different timelines, lots of different character perspectives. And so every chapter you're reading, it's like, you'd think it would get confusing because you're reading about something that happened like in the 70s, and then you're reading about something happening in the 60s or whatever. Like, it kind of bounces back and forth between different decades and like lots of different years within those decades. But then you've also got like maybe 8 different characters. So like some of them are police officers, some of them are members of the family of, because essentially this is about a very rich family who owns this like big fancy summer camp, and one of the kids went missing at this summer camp. And so this is now, most of the story is taking place a few years later. Like, I think it might even be like a decade later, when their other kid goes missing as well. And so it's this strange mystery of like, what is going on with this family at this summer camp? And like, you've got kids who are at the camp now while this is all happening too. So you're getting perspectives of these different campers. And I love a summer camp storyline. I used to go to summer camp a lot as a kid, and so I feel like that's partially why I just love the setting of this so much. But the mystery is also so well plotted and well done, and there's like tons of cliffhangers throughout the book, but they never feel cheap like they often do in books where it's like, oh, really, you're going to make me wait until the next chapter from that character's perspective. It's like, oh no, it'll be a little cliffhanger, but you will get an answer pretty quickly. Right. So I love this book. It's a little bit long, but don't be scared. It's very easy to fly through and just very exciting. And I know I just read it last year, but I actually already want to read it again. That's how much
That's
I liked
awesome.
It. Yeah.
I think that's so cool. Okay, well, the 2 books that I picked for my little category are books about writing. And the reason that I went with this category is because it was so easy for me to pick my 2 favorite. Like, I'm sure people listening that have heard the episodes before, like, already know what I'm going to talk about. But that's why I was like, yeah, I can happily set these in stone. Like, these are my 2 favorite books about writing. So the first one is what I talk about when I talk about running, a memoir by Haruki Murakami. This is such a beautifully and interestingly written book. It's kind of reflecting on 2 of his life's passions, writing and running, but how they influence each other and how the philosophy of one is the same as the other. You learn so much. I think a lot of readers love this as well, but like, I love learning about the routine that a writer has, like in what way does he write his book, or how does like Haruki Murakami do it. And so learning that running is such an important part of his writing, that's so fascinating. And like, yeah, it's just so good. I have read 3 of Murakami's books, but all of his nonfiction. I've never actually read one of his novels. I'm just more fascinated in him as like an author and as a figure than I actually am in his novels, which is interesting. The other one, of course, Stephen King.
Oh, yeah.
On writing. That's funny because that means we both have Haruki Murakami and we both have Stephen King on our lists.
I mean, yeah, they're awesome.
If someone were to ask me, like, what is one book I should read on writing, it would be the Stephen King one. Like, this is the number one. For a bunch of different reasons. Number one, it's just a fun memoir. Like, it's an interesting memoir. You just learn about Stephen King's life. He's actually had quite an interesting life. He's gone through some really, like, his path to publishing is very fascinating. Yeah. So there's a lot of just fun and interesting things to learn about his life. But secondly, he actually really like shares his ideas on the craft of writing and like gives tips and advice and opinions on the art of writing and what it is to be a writer. And he shares his process in depth about how he writes his books and his process and why he does things in certain ways. So he really covers the whole thing, you know, like he talks about it all. And I reread this, I think it was also last year, as an audiobook with my partner, which I guess when you're listening to this is now my husband. That's crazy. But like, yeah, we listened to this in the car and we loved it. We would like listen to a big part of it and then like stop it, and then we would have a great conversation about what we just heard. So it was really, really a fantastic reread, and it solidified that it's such a great book. I know you also love both of those books.
I do.
So.
I need to reread both of those for sure. Cause...
Very Books Unbound approved
oh,
books
yeah.
on those.
If I did a books about writing category, those would be my picks as well.
Yeah, it's incredible. There you have it, everyone. That was a lot of fun sharing the cream of the crop. The best of the best. Kind of mildly stressful, but in a good way. Sometimes you gotta tell the truth and say, these are my favorites. And so those are our favorites. If you're looking for one of those, we're excited for you to check them out. Also, of course, let us know in these categories, what are your absolute favorites? We would love to hear. Did we align on anything? I am actually pretty surprised that we didn't have any crossover, Raylene. I thought we'd have like one book that we both picked.
That actually is pretty crazy.
But we had no crossover whatsoever.
Top two makes it
just
hard.
Two different people living their own reading lives. We are going to be recording our Question Vase, which is like one of our monthly Patreon bonus podcasts. That'll be coming out next week. So basically, now that we're doing this every other week schedule on the main podcast, we're also doing the same thing over on the Patreon. So if you want to check out the Patreon, join the Patreon, please do. You'll get more content, which works pretty well, I think. It's a pretty good system. And we'll talk to you soon. Very exciting. Next week's or next episode is going to be crazy because it's going to be the wedding ep. It's going to be the book haul.
I'm excited and I'm scared.
Whew. Like I say, today's July 21st for us. So the idea that you're listening to this in a future where all of that stuff has gone down actually feels crazy to me, but it's very exciting. Thanks so much for being a part of the podcast, and we will talk to you in the next episode.
Bye.
Bye.